Manchester United 4, Athletic Bilbao 1, 7-1 on aggregate. United are into the Europa League final. We thought after last week it was done. Cut and dry. We're there. We're booking our tickets. People literally booking their tickets. Bilbao got a goal and everything changed and there was panic. But Amorim didn't panic. We made the subs. We got it right. We scored the goals and it was comfortable in the end. Scotty and Finn are here as well to go through what was, in the end, a nice, relaxing Manchester United performance. But for the first sort of 60 minutes, it didn't just feel like that, did it?
No, not at all. I mean, this is Manchester United. Our history is littered with not doing things the easy way. And it looked like today we were going to have to sort of fight through a Basque onslaught. And they started pretty well for 20 minutes or so, pretty similar to the first leg. But yeah, I'm not relieved. I'm proud. I think that the lads who came onto the pitch in the second half, the changes that Amorim made, can change that fixture. But we were through anyway when all said and done. But yeah, elated, man. It feels nice to be sort of back where we belong, and we're going back to the Basque.
European finals.
Ooh. Yeah.
It's
not the right European final.
Not the Champions League, but not every Premier League team can say they got to European final this week, eh?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I think it's just a kind of fairy tale ending.
Yeah.
It was the subs that changed the game, really. One thing I was really proud of is the way we stayed mature after the goal. We've seen so many times where United concede a goal and then we get hit for another and we kind of just lose our heads and it all spirals out of control. But we didn't. We controlled the game today, and it was, I can't really complain after that shaky 20 or so minutes after we conceded the goal. Subs changed it. We got right back into it, and it was we've started playing some beautiful football towards the end. So hopefully going into the final with a little bit of confidence from that.
Yeah, massively. Obviously, we've got just under 2 weeks to the final. It's Wednesday the 21st. For some reason, the final is a Wednesday. Not exactly sure why, but that's what they do. Let's go through the game a little bit. It is a bit of an odd one because had things been different, had that first leg be what we'd expected, a difficult win, maybe a narrow loss in Bilbao, we might be sat here now with a little bit more energy, a bit more shock, a bit more of that sort of giddy excitement that you get from winning a game late or coming from behind like we thought we might have to do. But what can you say about the team and the performances, especially in Europe this season, that we sat here expecting to win and we did win? Because that's not a position we found ourselves in much, is it?
No, not at all. And I always thought the Premier League form has been something of an outlier in terms of what the teams have able to do. And I think on nights like tonight, and particularly in the away leg against Bilbao, shows that when we want to play football, we can play some exquisite stuff. Second half today, some of the back heels and one touches and stuff. I mean, it was typified by Mount's last goal, really. But in terms of the team, we were talking about this on the watch along, and it's something that Amorim's been doing, not so much just on the formation. All the furore was around his use of wing backs, but it's how his man management has been. Earlier we were talking about Casemiro, who again popped up with a header, like he does in these sort of big occasions for Manchester United. But taking players who weren't playing well or looked like they didn't have a future at Old Trafford, and then giving them options and sort of working with them rather than sort of saying, right, okay, well, your numbers are dusted. Yeah. And then there's like the bond between Amorim and Casemiro when he went off the pitch. It was just great to see, and they're speaking really highly of each other. Now, you can take that to Harry Maguire, but someone who I think Finn pointed out on enough occasions this evening was Leny Yoro. Do you remember his performance against Southampton? Yeah. And for a lad his age, it could be so easy for him to sort of like crawl within his shell, be a little bit intimidated, said, all right, this is a step up for me. The runs that he was doing tonight into the box were like a number 10. It was just incredible. I'd mature beyond his years, and I know that's a cliche saying, but his decision making on the ball wasn't scared at all. It was just like bringing players in. It was really, really sensational play to watch.
Yeah, Leny Yoro, I'll let you talk about him as well.
Well, the thing is, so often we see players in England or in Europe getting the whole generational label attached to them and getting built up to be this player that they're maybe not. I think Leny Yoro is proving to be everything that he was built up to be. You know, when there was so much interest from Real Madrid and the big transfer saga was going through the summer, lots of people who had watched him throughout the seasons he played had said he's a generational talent, he's got everything, and he's proving that is the case, because you can't fault him. The way he's marauding up the pitch, just driving straight through the middle, so much confidence, so much belief in what he's doing, and no fear of making the wrong decision because his decision making is so consistent. I'm falling in love with him as a player because it's a real joy to watch. Yeah, it's what a United centre back should look like. It's, you think about Rio Ferdinand or something like that. It's obviously it's an early comparison to compare him to someone like that, but you get the similar kind of energy. Yeah, you do,
and especially you get that it was a lot of money. Probably spent even more comparatively on Rio. That was nearly 30 million in 2001, which was crazy for inflation. The time. But he's a teenager coming to Manchester United from a league where obviously people come from the French league all the time, and actually it tends to be one that does have a decent return, but it's not the Premier League, and you don't know what he's going to be able to do. But like I said, he's growing into that role more and more. He got an assist tonight, but the way he was bringing the ball up the pitch, how good he looks defensively, and he's 19. He turned 19 in November. Like, that doesn't happen. Yeah. There aren't, in my lifetime watching Manchester United, there aren't many teenage centre-backs that ever were first-team regulars for Manchester United.
Not for United. I was going to say Varane is one of the other ones.
Even across Europe, you just don't see it. A centre-back isn't a teenager's job. It just isn't. And the fact that he's doing it, and again, you look at the league form, it's not very good at all, but how often does he make mistakes, or does he do things you can blame him for? Not very often. And how often does he do really good things, like tonight, driving forward, giving Mason Mount the ball for that goal, and Mason Mount has still a lot to do. But he's such an exciting player.
So much personality.
There's a real style as well with the way that he plays and carries himself. And what is also indicative of the Yoro or that sort of signing, you made the reference to Varane there. Varane was very much a Glazer signing, whereas Yoro's like, this is what the future needs. Now we need to.
Well, we should have signed Varane in 2011.
Oh no, I completely agree with you. But Yoro, in terms of being 19 years old, this is the sort of calibre and foundation that we need to be building the club on, rather than going for these quick fixes. I think Casemiro's been a great signing and stuff, but we shouldn't be signing players at that end 100%. Of their career. Yoro should be the sort of template now for any other players that we're bringing into the club, as in terms of calibre, potential, and something that we can build on.
Well, you hear so many stories about the players in the early 2010s when Sir Alex Ferguson was departing that we were near to signing, like your Tony Krooses and your Varanes and your Gareth Bales and stuff. All of those opportunities that we missed out on, and then for the next decade, like you said, signed people like Varane and Casemiro later in their career as stopgaps. It looks like finally we're kind of redeeming ourselves for those errors and making the right decisions in the market and getting these young, exciting players that can be important for years to come. Yeah,
you can win cup competitions when you have that sort of short-termism. Yeah. You can't build footballing empires. If you look at the likes of what Man City have done on 115 charges, but they've built for the future.
They didn't do it by buying 29, 30-year-olds.
No, there was no we need you now to overnight Galacticos.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, Yoro, fantastic again tonight. A couple other players that I think we should mention. Mason Mount is a big one because unlike Leny Yoro, who came in as a teenager, hit the ground running other than a couple of hurdles, Mason Mount's time at Man United has been disastrous for us and for him. Constantly injured, has barely been able to sort of string a few games together. I think Amorim is handling him brilliantly at the moment. That I don't think he's started a game since he's been fit, and he's been fit for almost 2 months. And I don't think that is just because he's not good enough to start. I think it's because he's trying to make sure that this time he stays fit. Yeah. And he came on today, obviously got the goal earlier in the week as well. Got 2 goals tonight. One of them was a phenomenal finish. I know there was no keeper in the net, but on your weak foot, with basically a standing strike, he didn't get a great run up on it. To put it in from 45 yards out is still very impressive. But again, you were talking about those flicks and those little balls around the corner. He was a big part of that. Yeah. Another player I want to talk about, Ahmad, was as well. But it's nice just to see flickers and glimmers of the Mason Mount we thought we were buying finally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, Amorim's managed it perfectly. He's not been rushed back. He's been able to kind of integrate slowly back into the team, and hopefully for the long term, that will be better for not getting, reoccurrences of his injuries. But I've always maintained that if he can stay fit and available throughout a season, or at least significantly more than he has so far at United, he can absolutely be a really valuable player to United, at the very least as a squad option. But potentially he's won a Champions League at Chelsea. He's capable of playing at the very, very top level when he's firing on all cylinders. And yeah, like you saw, there was kind of glimmers of his personality and of the way he wants to play coming back into his performance at the end there. And I think that's the case for a lot of United players who, with a little bit of a confidence boost, suddenly become a different player altogether. So yeah, just so positive to see from him, and I'm really happy for him as a person.
Yeah, apologies by the way, correction, he did start against Brentford but came off after 57 minutes. I think that's the only start he's had though in those 2 months, like I said.
So does he start the final? Well,
that's the question. And another player that I think we have to build these next 2 weeks around getting him to start is Ahmad.
Mm-hmm.
It's just night and day when he comes on, isn't it? The technical ability, the lack of... He's so much less wasteful than our other players in those final areas. Like the assist he got for Højlund, that touch where it looks like I thought he'd overrun it. He just finds a way to get a toe and not just, I'll knock it back in the box. A meaningful cross into the box to Højlund so he can tap it in from a yard out. Scotty, when Ahmad comes on, we are just a better team, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, he is such a joy to watch in all his movement, really. It looks really effortless, the way that he sort of plays football and moves it around, but there's such a cunning brain behind him in everything that he's doing. His low centre of gravity, the vision, bringing other people into play. And I think when he's on his pitch, and because all the rest of the team around him are aware what he brings to it, everybody else, it elevates them as well. But yeah, he's got to start for me against Spurs in 2 weeks. I would put him in bubble wrap and then gently send him over by some form, not by a Deliveroo.
Exactly. And another thing that goes underrated with Ahmad, looking at some of his stats tonight, dispossessed 0 times, he keeps the ball so well. 2 successful dribbles out of 2 again. He just does the right thing in the right areas. So
one of them was this beautiful just ghost past another player, and it's like no one else in the team is doing that, and it's just really beautiful to watch. It
is. And the other thing as well that's so important with him, and we saw it when he was winning the ball back against Everton, and I think he did it 2 or 3 times where we'd score straight after. 3 duels attempted, 3 duels won tonight, 2 out of 2 on the ground, 1 out of 1 in the air as well. He's just
what can't he do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
that's a lot.
The fact that he got so few chances under Ten Hag, to the point where people like me were saying maybe we should move him on, is an absolute travesty.
I was told by someone quite closely linked to the dressing room in that situation that Ten Hag, and I don't mean to knock this other player, but Omari Forson was genuinely rated higher for the immediate and long term than Ahmad at that point.
It's amazing,
it's just I don't know how that happens.
It's so weird how different people can have such different views on
but especially when almost everyone seems to see so much in one player. And again, I'm sure that's not meaning to knock Forson at all, because I'm sure he'll have a good career. But yeah, stuff like that is beyond belief. Yeah.
Hit the like button if you are watching as well. Let's get to 1,000 likes on the video. DRZ says Mount man of the match, but Yoro was special today. Ahmad just dynamite. Absolutely agree with you. That's why we've spoken about all of those players. Kazmofo says we won against Lyon at home for a reason. We own Bilbao. We will win this. Glory, glory, Man United. Come on. Max Gomez, Europa League final 2021, Carabao final 2023, FA Cup final 2023, FA Cup final 2024, Europa League final 2025.
2026.
Not bad.
Champions
for
League final.
Our banter era. It is mad, isn't it? I know that whole angle has been sort of looked at a lot, and that comparison gets made a lot. But we are lucky to support a team that somehow, despite being one of the worst teams in the league, still gets to another final. That is something that most football fans don't get to see.
There are very, very big ups and very big downs.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Feels like it's always one extreme or the other.
Yeah, it is. Tegan Lamont says, how good is Ahmad? Yeah, he's unbelievable. Yeah, he actually is. Hands up for the Panther says, tonight United put it to bed, tucked us all in and said, good night to Bilbao. To who it may concern, those who doubted us, pundits and fake fans on social media, suck on that. This is our club. That was divine. I love a suck on that. You don't see that very often. You don't see a suck on that, and you don't see a get a life. Yeah. They both went out of fashion early 2000s, so it's nice to see. Let's look at Bilbao a little bit then. Not who we played tonight, but the final. 21st of May, playing against Tottenham Hotspur. And I know that Tottenham are the ultimate banter club. I know we think we are, but they haven't won a trophy since 2009. They, have struggled massively in the league. Their manager looks like he's on the verge of being sacked and may even get sacked regardless of the result of that Europa League final. But we've lost to them 4 of our last 5 times we've played them, including 3 times this season alone. We haven't beat them in 2 years, including the 6 games in that spell. What's going to have to change, Scotty, for us to not lose again to Tottenham? Because I know that it seemed, lads, it's Tottenham. But in terms of our relationship with Tottenham, that's not the case anymore.
No, not. I mean, when did we last play Tottenham and got beat by them? How long ago was that?
It was on the 16th of February, so
right, okay,
2 months ago.
2 months ago.
3 months ago, apologies.
And that was either League or FA Cup.
That was the Premier League.
The Premier League.
Yeah.
You have to take them in the context of the competition. I think if Manchester United that played tonight and played against Lyon and are unbeaten go up against Spurs, then that's the true representation of what the players can do. And I think everything sort of goes out the window anyway in terms of how they've been previously. And yes, it's nice to play into the hoodoo about Spurs being Spurs in a final, and to get beat by them in a European Cup final would be mightily embarrassing. But I think player for player, if we're fit, I mean, we should be pretty close to a full strength 11.
As long as there's no new injuries.
No injuries. I expect us to go into that. I think what needs to happen is United need to be dominating games, or at least controlling it from the offset, and not like being on the back foot as we've seen time and time again. So that's what I'd be spending time over the next sort of fortnight, because I wouldn't want the case where United can go up 1 goal down, but I don't want to be chasing the game too later into the later stages. So I'd like to see United to go in and control from the off.
Just on the final thing, sometimes when English teams play each other in European competitions, the games, they don't play like Premier League games.
Yeah.
I don't know why that happens, but like the Champions League final in 2008, it didn't feel like a Man United versus Chelsea match. It felt like a European match. Mm-hmm. Do you think that gives United a bit of an edge?
Yeah, I think European pedigree genuinely plays a role, because I think with United's history in European competitions, there's going to be a lot more self-belief. There's a status there of a club that are successful in these kind of scenarios, and Tottenham have never been that team, at least in modern history. And I think there'll be that. I think that might be creeping into the heads of the Tottenham players going into this game. That's my hope, at least. And form does go out the window. Domestic form, it becomes a complete one-off scenario. And I think on paper, it becomes a players' game, and United on paper come out on top of that. Another big thing going into it is the trajectories of the managers, because I think Ange could get sacked even if they win it. That's what some people are saying, and he looks like a manager going out of favour, and his trajectory seems to be downwards at Spurs based on how things are going. Amorim, you'd say on balance, obviously the Premier League has been a complete car crash, but you'd still kind of think that he's going on the upwards at United, and I think both sets of players will kind of have that in mind, and United, I feel the players are just going to get behind the manager a little bit more and have that little bit more fighting spirit to push through.
Thatcher in the comments makes a point that I think on the face of it might seem a little bit flippant, but I think there's a bit of merit to it. It says there's no way Mason Mount, a lad from London, let Spurs win a cup on his watch. And I don't necessarily think that but Mason Mount has won a Champions League, beating an English team in the final in Man City. Yeah. Casemiro has won 5 Champions Leagues. Tottenham don't really have a presence like that. I know one Champions League, and that was 4 years ago, isn't going to make Mason Mount twice the player that Heung-min Son is or whatever. But these things can creep in. I'm hoping that, like you mentioned, an accumulation of small factors will give United just enough of an edge so that we can at least make enough chances to win that game.
I think back to the last Europa League final, which obviously we lost. A lot of the narrative surrounding that team and the reason that we didn't win is because there wasn't an experience of winning trophies in that squad. Yeah. That was a big kind of takeaway that a lot of people had, is that under Oli, the silverware never kind of materialised, and as a result, the players weren't used to winning and weren't in the kind of right headspace for it. Yeah. Obviously, a couple of those players still remain, but one of them is Bruno, who's now won 2 trophies at United, and we come into this game with a lot more experience, having won silverware, and I think in games like this it can give you the edge, that bit of experience and belief.
That's a great point, actually, and the sort of mentality to go into it. And if you've got people like Casemiro leading the team into there, they won't be intimidating and with the same sort of way that Spurs might be a rabbit in the headlights sort of going. And I wonder how it'll play into it that United already played at that stadium this season.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I think we'll be the favourites for the game. Yeah. I think we should be, regardless. I think they're a little bit of points above us in
there. 1 or 2 points.
Who gives a toss?
We're both having awful league campaigns.
Yeah. But I agree with all of Finn's points there. I think the unison that you see between the players and Amorim is a lot different to the sort of disharmony that you see.
There's a future there between the two parties.
Yeah. And you think if things start going a little bit wrong, especially over the next fortnight at Spurs, it's quite a fractured place.
I would say at United, even if our league results don't go as hoped, I don't think it will really impact the morale of the squad. Obviously, it's not ideal to be losing 2 games before a final, but I think United seem to have more of a kind of long-term vision and hopes for the future compared to Spurs, who it feels like they're at a dead end with Ange at the moment. So
yeah, hopefully all of that can help us out. Max Gomez says, has Casemiro become one of our most important players consistently starting and performing? He has massively. You mentioned it during the watch long, Scott. He's gone from being, leave the football before the football leaves you, to being one of our best players and potentially winning a trophy and certainly getting to a final. So yeah, massively improved, isn't he?
And deserves all his plaudits. I'd love to see the sort of pundits who were saying he was past his best come out and say that they were wrong. And I think his football does all the talking for him, and he got his goal tonight. And he's been instrumental, especially in this European campaign. We were talking on the watch along. Bruno's probably been United's best player this season, given his stats, but most improved, I think you said, Joe, would definitely be Casemiro.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing to see. It's just, when United are playing well and nights like this or the run that you go on, I just love how the players interact with each other, and you see I might get poetic, but you see the glint in their eye and the smiles and the sort of the knowing look. And like when Mason Mount scored and he was sticking his tongue out, and it's just they were taking the photos of Ahmad.
There's something like a childishness injected into the squad in a positive way.
Yeah, there really is, and it's like you have that attachment like they're your mates, and you're like, yeah, go on, lads. It's just. After all the shit that's happened over the last decade or so, it's lovely to be sat here talking about Man United being in a European Cup final.
It's lovely, isn't it?
A
European
Cup final, which are more important than league titles.
Absolutely. 6 out of 7 tackles won as well tonight. 6 tackles is a lot.
Casemiro.
For Casemiro, yeah. I mean, like you said, we're seeing a version of Casemiro that is back to being very effective, very helpful, and being a bit of a leader on the pitch again, which, to be honest, I didn't think we'd ever see from Man United again.
No, for me, there was a point earlier in the season where for me he was done at United and done at the top level.
Yeah.
But he's turned that on its head.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Right. That's it. We're through to the final of the Europa League. I'm sure thousands will be making their way over there. We'll be here for the watch along for that game, obviously, but we've got a couple more games to battle through before that. Hopefully, though, we can get a bit of momentum. And like you said, Finn, if we don't, I think that United, because where we are with our manager, can separate the league.
I think there's an understanding there.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely is. And hopefully United can win another trophy. But it's been brilliant sharing the night with you.
What a pleasure.
Brilliant sharing it with you at home as well. 7-1 on aggregate, 4-1 win. United scoring goals, 1 goal conceded across 2 legs. That's more like it, isn't it? Yeah. Against one of the best teams in Spain. You can't argue with that.
7 goals scored against what most people say is the best defence in Spain.
You know what I mean?
That's amore.
See you in a bit.